Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, your favorite Giants podcast. I am your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan, and we are back following Super Bowl LIX. What is this one? 59?
59. Grump, we are now living in a regime where the Eagles are champions, the Celtics are champions, the Florida Panthers are champions, and Ohio State is a champion. These are bad times, my friend. Dark times.
Well, I mean, it's been
Not
a long
good.
time coming. You could kind of smell the writing on the wall for a while.
Yeah, well, I had a pretty nice run in the 2000s or the 20 aughts or whatever
Aughts or
with all
whatever.
yeah, I mean, the household between myself and Cranky Wife, we were just World Series and Super Bowls and national championships and Stanley Cups, and now it's payback time. And this was a very weird Super Bowl. I don't know how you felt about the last 2 weeks, but this felt like a chore. Like no one was happy. This wasn't a celebration of anything. This was people, most of the country completely sick of Kansas City and all their antics versus a team that we passionately hate. So this was a kind of a joyless. Usually, I'm all excited about the Super Bowl, and we always have a good party every year and all that stuff. But this was just like I just wanted to get this thing over with and get past the discourse and move on with our lives.
Yeah,
So I
well, I
don't know
mean,
how you felt about all the procedures.
that sort of feels like the haters' point of view, right? And I don't mean like, yeah, I think you're right. I think a huge portion of the football watching world is sick of seeing Kansas City. At least 25% legitimately think that the game has been rigged for the Chiefs to win at this point. It's a huge group of people that legitimately think this. Um,
Well, this country's got conspiracy problems anyway, so that doesn't surprise me in the least.
I'm just saying, like the general mood of this Super Bowl. You know what I mean? At least
Yeah,
25% passionately hate Taylor Swift. Most of whom probably have never heard a Taylor Swift song.
yeah.
That all feeds into this. As far as the Eagles go, I don't know how liked or not liked they are nationally. They're not liked around here, or they're passionately loved, depending on how far south in Jersey you wind up. But I think Jalen Hurts is somebody that people think highly of around the country. I think Saquon Barkley is definitely somebody that people think highly of. I don't really know about like I know I hate Nick Sirianni and like Big
Mhm.
Dom and shit and like, but I don't know how the rest of the country feels about that. But it definitely, at least from my point of view, felt like an absolute chore this whole Super Bowl. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah. Like usually, I suck up a lot of like just reading about things, and besides the obvious X's and O's, it's just kind of I really don't want anything to do with it, and that's sad. But that's again, when you have a team that you really your biggest rival, the team you really can't stand, that whether it's Georgia playing for the national title or the Celtics in the finals, it's just kind of like a my personal reaction to that is ugh. I just want to get through it, and that's a me problem. But and the Eagles, and I knew it, and we talked about it in last week's episode that I just knew this was coming. I just thought they were clearly better. We throughout this season we've talked about the Eagles, and I think you were a little later coming around to it than I was. I'm like, I think the Eagles are really good, and you need a little more, proof it to see it. But they just steamrolled, and I'm sorry, but well, I just can't bet against Pat Mahomes. Is not a gambling strategy. It's not a strategy to pick a winner. It's not much to hang yourself on anything because what's past is prologue and shit like that. And I this almost exactly happened the way I thought it was going to play out this game from the very beginning. I just thought both lines were better, and that's that.
yeah. I am not at all surprised by any of this. I think the thing that just stinks, and whatever, let's just get right into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, go for
Um,
it.
this was like the worst. Part of the reason why I just wasn't looking forward to this is that this was the worst possible outcome in terms of just fun. Um, you go into this. Baltimore would have been more fun to watch. Buffalo would have been more fun to watch. Not saying they deserve to be there. I mean, you got to win to get there, but like of all the teams that went into the playoffs, this was like the worst possible outcome for excitement. Detroit was more exciting to watch.
Mhm.
Minnesota and Green Bay, all these teams were more exciting to watch than Philadelphia this year. Um, More consistently exciting. And I don't mind a blowout. Like, I think it's hilarious watching Kansas City absolutely melt down. I mean, from zero, they had the first play of the game, Patrick Mahomes threw an 11-yard pass to Juju Smith-Schuster, first down. That would be the last first down of the first half. That's
That's
how
amazing.
incredibly bad the Chiefs were in this game. I loved every second of it. So I don't care that it was a blowout. That's not what makes it not exciting. What makes it not exciting is the game was legitimately just not exciting. There were a couple moments at the end I thought maybe Saquon was gonna break one. It felt like he was getting really close, and then it just didn't happen. He averaged a dismal 2.3 yards per carry. I mean, the most exciting play is a legitimately exciting play. I don't want to take anything away from it at all, but the pick six from Cooper DeJean. But again, like not to like nitpick anything. Well, I mean, not even that. That really was like the only exciting play of the game. The only thing that kind of rivaled it was, I guess, Xavier Worthy's touchdown was pretty exciting to watch. It meant absolutely nothing, but I don't know.
Well, you know,
It was just the most boring ass game I've ever watched. Jalen Hurts ended this game with like 220 yards passing.
well, you know what it is? It's like if you go to a basketball game and the Knicks are up by 27 and there's a slam dunk. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. It's not as exciting as if it's in a tight game. And it's like, whoa, that really had impact. So the plays that were exciting were just kind of like, oh, all right. It was in the wash of a lopsided game. So that kind of mutes the
No,
excitement.
I mean, come on. Let's be. There just weren't any big plays. There wasn't anything really
Yeah.
big and exciting. If you like, even like, think of those like those Dolphins games where they were beating the shit out of teams in the regular season, and they were just launching shit. It was
Well,
absolutely so much. It was highlight worthy. There was absolutely like nothing iconic about this game. It just blew.
well, I think what the thing is too is, your perception of Kansas City, no, not you, but like the nation's perception is a team that they don't really have anymore. You know, they've had receivers that are gone, where that was a high-powered offense, an exciting offense. Mahomes, throwing three-quarter or sidearm around players and stuff, and that's not that team anymore. But your thought of Kansas City is, oh, there's this high-flying offense that who's going to stop this team, and that's not them. I mean, how many one-score games did they have this year? They grinded out. I mean, we always say that one-score games are kind of like a fluky, stat. It's more, you know, kind of good fortune and being really good at one score games. And they were the recipient of that. And, Philly, Philly, that was a Philly game. Other than the fact that they completely loaded up against Saquon to make sure he didn't beat them, but they score a lot of points because they grind you down, and in the fourth quarter you're done, and they just steamroll. So that's kind of what these teams are, as opposed to what the perception of these teams were. I think.
Well, I think that's definitely true, but I also don't really think that's how Philly operated this year. I mean, this was a combination of Philly having a really, really excellent defensive game plan, and
Hmm.
they came right up to the challenge. Kansas City being weak on the O line, and Patrick Mahomes just playing bad. What really pissed me off is it felt like everyone was saying everything except that. Like Mahomes was like running into sacks at points in this game, forcing shit into stupid scenarios. Um, no one wanted to just say Mahomes was playing badly.
Yeah,
It
it's
was like
interesting.
certainly other factors involved, but no one could say it. It was super annoying.
You texted me that during the game, and then I saw, I think it was Awful Announcing, had like their recap of the game, and they said, why won't Brady admit that Mahomes is playing bad today? I was like, oh, interesting.
It
I
was
mean, Brady couldn't shut about everything else, but I mean, the one thing that was really important, he really didn't mention.
and I'm glad you brought me around to that because outside of the football that we watched, this was case in point what I was saying about Tom Brady doesn't deserve this job. Tom
Of course.
Brady, I mean, like in his first year in announcing, gets a Super Bowl. He gets this insane announcing contract, even though he's never announced anything in his life. He was horrible to listen to. I mean, cliches that were just like cringeworthy, tons of dead air. He spent an entire quarter talking about himself.
That fourth quarter, again, I might have had one too many, but I felt it was a 20-minute run-on sentence. And I was like, what is he even talking about? Yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot for a guy who's not doesn't have the reps and the experience and the polish of someone like an Aikman or even a Romo when you're in a blowout game. But it was just, and and poor Kevin Burkhardt he probably went to go take a piss while he was doing this long rambling monologue about nothing. But yeah, that's not exactly the way you're going to maintain an audience, is by having a name not really say anything by talking too much.
Uh, it goes to my point of everyone thinks that getting the name in the booth matters. It really doesn't. People are entertained by what they're entertained by. I didn't think in a million years Tony Romo was going to be entertaining, but the moment he started announcing, you could tell he had it.
Hmm.
That's it. You just know it.
Yeah.
So, and he's not my favorite, but
And,
that doesn't
and
matter.
honestly, and honestly, Brady, when you just get down to nuts and bolts of a game, is not terrible. I
Of
mean,
course, yes.
there's been some brutal guys coming right off the field, right out onto the booth, and you're like, you know, get out of here. You're awful. He's not awful. I just think there's an unrealistic expectation that Fox put on themselves by giving him all that money and having him jump the line too.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
just shouldn't have
again,
happened. Yeah.
I'm not a fan of who's the guy he replaced at Fox?
Greg Olson. You didn't like
Olson.
Greg Olson at all.
I don't like Greg Olson at all, but Greg Olson worked his way up, and he's not. He was the third team. Then he was the second one. Then he finally got his shot. I mean, why not that first year have a three-man booth?
Yeah.
I mean,
Especially
that
since
that way.
it gives him time to like like there should be no dead air. You know what I mean? He
Hmm.
doesn't have to worry about that. It's just one thing off of his checklist. He can just kind of get the reps.
Yeah, there was a lot of good things on this weekend, and one of the things was Dick Vitale is back. He had I think 3 or 4 different cancer bouts, and he's won all those cancer battles. It was his first game back in 2.5 years, I think, with ESPN. And rather than just have him and Dan Schulman together, they had a three-man booth. So it gave Vitale the breathing room to speak as much as he need to, but not having to rely on him because he's, first of all, it's his first game back in a couple of years. He's very old now, and it's just not expected to do that. He put they My point is, ESPN put him in its position to be successful and succeed. And I don't think Fox has done that with Brady. I think you just throw him out there and say, "Oh yeah, year one, by the way, oh, it's a Super Bowl year too." So no matter, he may be a lot better now than he was in September, but that's a really steep, you know, it's like going to Oxford for a year before taking your exam. It's like, well, wait a minute, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah. I had really, I guess, had my fingers crossed that he would have gotten better by this point, but it was just their own mistake. We all suffered for it.
See, I'm not that harsh on him. I think it's just, to me, it was just kind of there. He wasn't like, again, some announcers. Who was it? Drew Brees was
Yeah.
awful, awful. Like, they had to get rid of him after 1 year. Like, he's gone. He's no good.
Jason
He,
Witten.
exactly. Like, I don't think he was horrible or bad.
No,
It's
no, no,
just,
no. He
yeah,
just didn't belong there. And
yeah,
I, the Super Bowl was the one game a year where like, and you've said this too, where it's like you are entertaining the entire demographic
country,
spectrum. You know what I
right?
mean? Like you have to, and I'm sure we'll get to this, but like we've ranked halftime shows, and like we've kept it in the context that like you are trying to entertain the masses,
Mhm.
and um I don't know. They nothing. I don't know where the decision came from to just shoehorn a guy in there without any reps at all. This was predictable, and it wasn't an absolute disaster, but it wasn't good. I
Well,
mean,
wasn't honestly Brady supposed to start last year? Like, so he would have 2 seasons under his belt before the Super Bowl. I feel like he got pushed back a year before he started the
I don't
being in
know.
the
I
booth.
feel like he didn't even call a whole year's worth of games, did he?
Yeah, he did.
I
Yeah.
thought he kind of popped in and out like every other week.
No. He was from the beginning.
Okay.
The way they kind of did the schedule was like I think they played like Minnesota, like he'd called like their first 3 games, or was it Dallas or someone? Because like they wanted him to like not learn 2 new teams right off the beginning. Like, okay, I could take my knowledge from
Okay.
doing the Cowboy game this week to do it again next week. So only learning one new team to kind of, you know, ease his way into it. But he did a full schedule.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, they had the foresight for that, but not whatever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like the one time you really want your A team on. That's all I'm saying. And you're a
I mean, well,
completely
also,
unproven guy, and it
I'm
wasn't
just
very
thinking
good.
about, yeah, I'm just thinking about when I was, growing up, like big games require big game announcers. When NBC had it, Dicker Enberg and Merlin Olsen, big game announcers. CBS, obviously, uh, Madden and Summerall. Those are big game announcers. You hear those voices, this is important. Uh, I don't get that with Kevin Burkhardt at all. And obviously Brady is a kind of a carnival sideshow. Like it's just the name.
I think that Barkhart is got the announcer voice. He hasn't quite hit his stride, I don't think, to for what you're saying, but I wouldn't rule him out to eventually getting there because
Yeah,
he's a fine announcer. I hear what you're saying for
he
sure.
could be he could be a Joe Buck, where Joe Buck took a long time to
To get
get
there,
his voice,
he really did.
and get his cadence, and he went from a guy that, oh, that ball came off his helmet, what a catch,
Yeah.
to someone now who's legitimately, really, really good.
Yeah, yeah. That was a great impression, by the way.
Thank you. I'm working on that one.
Halftime show was just immemorable. I'm perfectly fine chalking myself up to being like I'm an old man. I don't know anything about what's cool right now, and I do know Kendrick Lamar, and I do like Kendrick Lamar anyway. But just in general, just a boring halftime show. That was boring to watch. I was unentertained. That's
Yeah,
the long and short of it.
I mean, it's a pretty ballsy move. I know how popular Kendrick Lamar is, but he's very. It's kind of like hockey crowd, where the Rangers are really, really popular inside the Garden, but for the 20 million people live in New York, maybe not so much.
Yeah,
I mean, I mean,
I completely agree. I
eh,
understand he sells a
yeah.
lot of records. He won a lot of awards. That's fine. But again, you are appealing to every age group, gender, creed, everything. Like this is the broad spectrum. And that's usually why like they used to have like a main artist and then there'd be like a twist artist halfway through that was completely like genre crossing or something like that where like
Well, what they should have done, they should have had Drake come out there.
Ugh.
I mean, that because if you watch like the
Yeah,
MTV
the NFL
Awards,
on MTV.
they always do like some silly twist. Like I remember like one time they had you know, Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera sing with Madonna. Like, oh, that's an interesting twist having the
Yeah.
three of them up there. If you would have had Drake go on there and then, even if they not they're gonna beat the shit out of each other, but like kind of like have like a wrap up, that would have been like, first of all, that would have blown the whole internet up sky high.
That's true.
That would have been your most, memeable, viral thing that's ever happened to probably a Super Bowl
Having
for
a
something like
rap
that.
battle in as the Super Bowl halftime show, I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah, especially those two. Like that's the biggest story of music, that feud. And but I whatever. I mean, again, I'm super boomer on the show, and I don't think rap has been good in 30 years. I just grew up in with the classics and the old school, so this is not my. But I thought it was all right,
I mean,
I guess.
again, I'm taking the music portion completely out of it. Just saying,
Yeah.
just from a visual perspective, that was like one of the least exciting, interesting. It was just a flat out boring
Well,
halftime
the,
show.
the halftime show is like Super Bowl commercials, where they have a set amount of time, and you got to
That's
cram
fair,
in.
but I mean, we've seen crazy shit not that long ago. Come on. I'm
Yeah,
just saying, what there were like some shapes on the field, and that was pretty much it.
yeah. I mean, the best halftime shows have been because it's a an act that you love, and B, they're
Sure.
just belting out their best songs. Prince is memorable. It's my favorite one because A, I love Prince, and B, that
Yeah. So
is
did it
rain.
in the
He's
rain.
raining while he's singing Purple Rain. That is pretty iconic. The
Yeah.
U2 one, I love U2, and 'cause the situation with 9/11 made that a great one.
Yeah.
This let's put it this way. Kendrick Lamar has a certain subset of the population likes him. So, but the whole thing about Drake, I mean, I can give my parents 4,000 guesses what any of like the punchline of all this was, and they would not get it. They would not know. And a lot of people just aren't plugged into pop culture. I mean, forget music, pop culture. But the people that were into it loved it. And the NFL's in a spot. They're trying to be something for everybody. If you're trying to be something for everybody, you can't go niche.
Yeah. No, you're just gonna disappoint everybody.
Yeah, and I know, don't go out and tell me that I'm an old man because I don't believe in rap or any of that nonsense. It's like if you put a country artist in there. If you put if you threw on, I don't know, Luke Bryan, for example, a large percentage of the audience is going to turn it off also. So I don't know what the answer is to halftime show. Maybe it's just too blown up to be too much of a big deal. I mean,
I think that's definitely part of it.
why is it I watch 18 weeks of football and I don't clamor for a halftime show? I mean, how many times have you and I sat at the Meadowlands and been like, whew, I wish that AC/DC came out here for a halftime show or something. It's not part of football, really.
Yeah, I don't really need the show at all. So, but just criticizing the entire thing from front to back. Last note, really,
Yeah.
even the commercials have suffered. I feel like this is something that we've probably talked about once before, but I just think in general, I don't even. It used to be a guarantee that because of the price of the commercial, you were either getting the most creative bit of advertising you've ever seen in your life, or something that was guaranteed to make you laugh. And that was sort of the goal. And now we have just the most run of the mill, whatever. And again, I
What
don't.
can I jam into 30 seconds? How many slapstick,
Some of them were like we've like
jokes?
leaned into the sappy thing too, and like I don't really care about any of this, but I think it just like my overall malaise of this past Sunday. It's just like it really is because of everything. Like it has very little to do with the fact that the Eagles won. Honestly,
It's not as bad because they've already won one. If this would have been
yeah,
their first one, it'd been a lot worse. It's kind of like the Red Sox. Like when they won their second one, like, all right, well, there's no curse thing, and it's just like that sucks. My rival won, but yeah, commercials are everybody's like, oh, commercials used to be so great. It's kind of like Saturday Night Live skits. If the show's been on for 50 years, and really truly, how many memorable skits have there been over 50 years?
yeah. Everyone always quotes the same
Maybe
like
uh,
25.
maybe 150 years that are truly like memorable. And that's how I feel like how Super Bowl commercials are, where everybody has this expectation, like, oh, it's the best part of watching it is this commercials, which that's never true.
No, that's
But
never
second
true.
of all, you're dealing with 30 seconds, and they got to jam in so much information and so much, you know, the it's like a creative director's, just wet dream. Just how fast can I get so much shit in there? And this year, I noticed with some of these, they just have these long, rambling like storylines that are going nowhere, and I'm like,
Yep.
boy, this commercial felt like 33 minutes, and it was 45 seconds. I don't know. Maybe I have to start drinking again or something, but I don't know.
No, you're definitely right. Like part of the commercials thing is a misrepresentation of volume, right? Like
Mhm.
people remember their handful of really good ones, but they can't. But the point is that even if you don't remember them now, like you were, I do think that you were always given something where you could tell that they spent the money. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
at this point, like, I don't know, man. I just
Well, they're just trying to be memorable, and they're trying like that commercial with the Harry Met Sally one when they did.
Hmm.
Okay, kind of cute they did that again. Went back there, but why is Sydney Sweeney had to play the part of Rob Reiner's mom?
I don't know. I do think there is something to that, though. I think that's clever for a reason that I don't know.
That
Because
she has
I heard
because she has
people
big cans. Is that
maybe
the
I
clever
hope
part?
that would be enough for me. Um, I don't know. I overheard people at the party I was at talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of like you're trying so hard for a wow factor and to be memorable because everything is trying to be memorable, and it's just I don't know. I never considered the Super Bowl commercial as a art form or an entertainment. To me, it's just we have to wait. This is the shit we have to watch while we're waiting for the game to start again. And it also felt like there was a lot of time in between, like timeouts in the Super Bowl. I know it's a little longer than normal, but there were sometimes I forgot it was even like second down or third down coming back from these series of commercials. Just everything
Uh,
just dragged.
yeah, I don't know. I can't really remember. The game itself, I don't know. I, I I knew Jalen Hurts was going to get the MVP the moment I couldn't think of who would be the MVP.
Yeah,
I texted you and I was like, "Well, who gets it? Cooper DeJean?"
he he had a very like Phil Sims like performance. Like the numbers were close, right? Completion percentage was close. Was he like 19 to 24 or something? It was really
Probably,
close.
yeah,
I mean Phil Sims was not, you know, oh my God, this is the greatest performance I've ever seen. But he just was efficient and led him to win. I mean, I don't care that much normally about MVPs of games or whatever, but collectively, I said honestly, the MVP of the game should have been
Vic Fangio.
yeah, not a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, that
Yeah,
was the most valuable player of that game, the most valuable person of the game, because
yeah,
when
no
you're
question. But you just never get that award.
you're shutting out the best quarterback of his generation. Pretty
Yeah,
fucking
no,
amazing. That's
I
really,
completely
really
agree.
amazing.
Yeah,
And not even shutting out, to reference what you said earlier, they almost shut him out in first downs in the first half.
it was crazy.
That's nuts. I
Um,
guess the only saving grace was that Saquon Barkley really was no factor in the game. Other
yeah,
than other than now he decides he likes to pass block, which would have been
yeah.
nice, for the first 5 years of his career. But he
Uh,
really that would have been the dagger in my heart, I think, if he would have ran for, 170 with 2 touchdowns. Or again, referencing what you said earlier, in the fourth quarter he just breaks one for 80 yards and that becomes, you know,
the highlight reel of the
ugh,
off season. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it felt like he was going to, but rest assured, he did next to nothing in this game. His best play was a catch down the sideline in which he was uncovered and actually almost dropped. So, um, yeah, he was a relative non-factor. It was just I don't know. It was just a
A team that was
very dull game.
one team that was better than the other, and one team that was better coached than the other.
Yeah, it was just like Kansas City didn't play poorly on defense. Like they
Mm-mm.
really did force Philadelphia to grind things out. They were like that's what I'm trying to say. Like there wasn't people like streaking wide open and down the sideline and shit like that. Like none of that at
Nope.
all. It was just a methodical game from Philadelphia. They had to play perfect to score. They did have an interception. Uh, got that hit on Jalen Hurts. He just kind of launched one.
Mm-hmm.
Poor decision into double coverage. Um, I don't know. It was just yeah. So
So
that's what it was. All the perfect factors for a boring game is that you had a sound defense versus a dominant defense. So
I'm
you were
gonna do a little
guaranteed for nothing fun.
I'm gonna do a little segue game with you right now. So Jalen Hurts has one Super Bowl MVP.
Oh, okay.
If they win a second Super Bowl in the next 5, 6 years, he would have two.
Possibly.
Let's play the game. Let's say he wins a second one. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Um,
Because apparently that's not a automatic enshrinement into Canton by winning two Super Bowl MVPs.
I think we have to. He's going to face different challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so one of the things that works in Eli's favor is that a lot of his statistical accolades get washed away by playing in what we know as the greatest era of quarterback play. So
Hmm.
he was just never first at anything while being very, very, very good. Um, if you look at the passing statistics for Jalen Hurts, I suspect without looking that they're not on the same pace that Eli was at. However, if you look at the rushing yards, they're probably uh, they're probably they'll blow Eli's out of the water, but they'll probably be moderate-ish by what we consider like a mobile quarterback standards today. But his rushing touchdowns are going to be through the roof
Sure.
for the tush push, and
Hmm.
that's we live in the Jalen Hurts era. 25 years from now, we're going to remember the Jalen Hurts era, and you know, it's going to be unclear how many of those rushing touchdowns really were 1 yard nothings and how many were him, making something happen or breaking free and getting in the end zone. And it's going to be a completely different debate because we're not living in it in the moment. So it's going to be, he's going to face different challenges, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because like Matt Stafford faced a lot of challenges, not in Hall of Fame discussion, but just in those like NFL top 100 countdown things or whatever. Like years ago, the hugest criticism was that he could just launch stuff in the general direction of Calvin Johnson, and he would get receptions, and it was like, okay, you can't blame him for it, but it's not really an accolade for him. And it's a huge chunk of his yards, it's a huge chunk of his touchdowns, and it just makes it harder. Matt Stafford was like the ugly stepchild of that generation of quarterbacks.
Yeah. It's very true. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think it's still too early. My whole point of bringing that up was I wanted to segue into the Eli conversation that, Eli's biggest argument has been the two Super Bowl MVPs. You know, we touched on this last week too, but he has a very consistent run of 16 years or whatever it is of consistency by being available, by if you look at his yearly stats, they were roughly about the same each year. And if you do that over a long period of time, that makes you MVP worthy. Um, I don't know what Hurts. I mean, Hurts. Some nights you see him, he looks awful. And we had the conversation back in October, like they're gonna fire Sirianni because the two of them hate each other and
Yeah.
they don't fit. They don't fit. And who is the best coach in this division? It's so they got on a run. They got hot. And, I think he's the perfect. This is a product of good coaching too, because they've tailored an offense around who they have. They're not trying to shoehorn him in. I mean, same like with Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. I think if you put, if Jalen Hurts just tested the market, the free agent market, and some random team just picked him up, he may not be as successful because of what's been built around him and the benefits that he does have. So if you have to kind of tailor an offense around what you do to be successful, does that necessarily mean you're a Hall of Fame quarterback?
I don't know. I mean,
I mean, it's almost like a
kinda
Lamar
though.
Jackson. It's kind of a Lamar Jackson question too.
But
I mean, Lamar Jackson's a better version, obviously,
yeah. Well, I
but
mean, I guess that depends on, are you tailoring an offense away from weaknesses, or are you tailoring an offense around strengths? Are those even different things?
hmm.
I don't know how to describe that other than like, why would you take somebody out of a system that works for them? You know what I mean? Like,
Right, right.
because you can look at it two ways, right? Like, if you're looking at it at the way of Lamar hypothetical. This isn't me saying this. Lamar Jackson doesn't fit into the mold of what we do for NFL quarterbacks, so we've specially designed this offense for him, and that's what he flourishes in. But he can't exist outside of that. Versus, you know, Tom Brady has had success in this offense for the first 8 years of his career. Maybe we should move him around. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm. Right.
those are kind of different things, I guess. I don't know. I think Jalen Hurts could get there. He's still young, right? How old is he?
This is his sixth year, I think.
Which doesn't
He
make him like
was.
27.
I feel like he was a little older when he came out, but like I think it's
Yeah, so
his
did
fifth or
I.
sixth year.
Um,
So what are we ready to re-rank the division quarterbacks now?
um, from the start of the season starters.
To right now, like if you're doing a draft of the four starting quarterbacks, and obviously the Giants being fourth because they don't have a quarterback. I
Okay,
mean, if are you taking Daniels? You taking Hurts? Are
I'm
you
taking
taking
Daniels. 100. I liked Daniels. I wanted the Giants to get Daniels.
good?
Yeah, I'm a huge
I
fan of Jaden Daniels.
I agree with you too. And Super Bowls are nice to win, and being Super Bowl MVPs are nice, but the ceiling is so high right now for Daniels.
Hmm.
And I think what we saw was like the best version of what Jalen Hurts ever will be was yesterday in the Super Bowl,
Maybe,
right?
yeah.
I
Well, I
mean,
mean, we'll see. I mean, we've seen the big arm in the right situations. We didn't see that in this game. We just saw an highly efficient guy. Like I did, like a sounds like I'm taking something away from what was a great performance, honestly. But he was simply highly efficient. I think that he could be better. Like I think that he can probably put a team on his back at a
yeah, I
point in
don't
the
know.
future. Right now, I don't think he can, but I think he's shown that he's can perform in the moment and he can make big throws. He's just got to make both of those things happen at the
And,
exact same time.
and he had ability to make big runs too. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
several times during this run, including the playoffs and the Super Bowl, he's oh, he just got loose for 30 yards. Oh, there was a 40-yard touchdown run. He has that in his back pocket too, in his bag of tricks.
Absolutely. And I think that Eli Manning will eventually be a Hall of Famer.
I think he will eventually too. I think it was in all fairness and all objective as I can be, I did not think he was a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I think there is a difference between a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, I think these Hall of Fames should have wings for like different tiers of how great you are in the Hall of Fame. I think there's it when someone is super super special, and it's like a Tom Brady is super super special, and Eli Manning is one of the greatest quarterbacks of his generation. He's not one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And to me, I'm very strict on my voting. And being a first balloter does mean something. And I just don't think he was. I definitely think he'll get in. It may not even be next year. I think it's a very hard class next year that's getting in too. But he will get in at some point.
Um. Yes. I don't personally make the distinction between a first ballot guy and a non, um, because I think that can be a product of the class that you're in. Um, but
They did
whatever.
tweak the voting. They tweaked the voting to how it works now. I think there's five modern guys, or there's something where it's different than it used to be. Like
But isn't
there's
there like a maximum?
yes, where there
But
never
see,
was
like,
before.
so like that's where I lose the first ballot thing because like if you're just in there where it's just like, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer, but not before these guys are, then it doesn't mean that he wouldn't have been a first ballot guy if he had just been on a different ballot. So that's why I don't make the distinction. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't. We'll have to see if there's ever going to be a year where there's, you know, five guys that are first ballot guys getting in. I mean, I think that's pretty rare. I mean, it may be a tough year where there's like two or three of them, but that'd be an anomaly, I think, to
that's
get to
yeah.
get squeezed out on your first because it's such a strong class before.
Why do they all have to be first in front of him? It doesn't. You just have to be on a ballot where you're not necessarily in the top five of the guys on the ballot.
Yeah, but I'm thinking if if you're winning your turn and this is your year after 5 years, I think if you are a true first ballot guy, I think you jump over the line of guys that are like, well, they didn't get in their first 2 years or their first 3 or 4 years.
I don't know.
It's a little bit of semantic, but I think you know it's different than like baseball where there never was a unanimous guy, for example.
I thought the oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But also there is no separate wing for first ballots for not, so it's really just this is purely opinion, not
well, I
anything
mean,
in stone.
also, I don't necessarily believe in the first ballot thing. but I would agree with you that he's not a first ballot guy. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I think by the standards that are already set by the Hall of Fame, he's a Hall of Famer. But I would, if they're not my standards, and if my standards were in place, Eli Manning wouldn't be a Hall of Famer to begin with. So
You would have him as a Hall of Famer at all.
no, if it were my Hall of Fame with my standards that I
Hmm.
could start from scratch, he wouldn't be in there at all. No, he would be in the Hall of Very Good.
Hall of Very good.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what he is, and that's what the Ring of Honor is for at MetLife. He can have all the franchise accolades and show up all those parades, whatever. But just he was very, very, very good.
Yeah.
To me, the biggest bummer, honestly, of him not getting in the Hall of Fame is had he been inducted, I would have only had to endure the annoying and ill informed and stupid arguments in both directions for why he should or should not be in there until we had our Hall of Fame game. Now I have to hear them for a whole other cycle until he
uh,
gets in because they're so annoying. They're so like lazy. It could take 5 seconds to look up that he was not carried by his defense in 2011. Like,
hmm
you know what I mean? Like, I'm so, especially somebody who just like does not care about that sort of thing. It is just such a chore to hear people argue about.
I'm honestly more upset that Fred Taylor didn't get in. I think, Fred Taylor is, the second best Gator running back in NFL history. I know that's my standard, but I mean, he was fantastic with Jacksonville. And I think he was just kind of a product of playing in Jacksonville. If he would have played on Chicago or one of the New York teams or something, I think there's no question he'd be a Hall of Famer. I think just being buried in Jacksonville cost him, you know, exposure and visibility and brand awareness that he probably needed. But to me, he's a no doubter Hall of Fame. I hope he gets in someday pretty soon.
I didn't really look at his career accolades to prepare for a counter
Yeah,
argument, so I'll just go with you.
top
Uh,
10 yards in his career.
Damn.
Yeah, he was really really good.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville and Carolina had a lot of buzz about them when they were expansion teams, and their inability to capitalize on that. Although Carolina's come close a couple times, uh,
Jacksonville too. I think they've been in the conference championship game 2 or 3 times. I think.
but wasn't it all front loaded?
They did it their second year. Didn't they do it in the last 10 years? Didn't they have
They, the
like
divisional round they lost to New England or something.
they had a blip where they were like in the conference championship game?
I didn't think they made it that far. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean Carolina legitimately almost won the Super Bowl and
Hmm.
were like a one loss team. So, but
They were Jake Delhomme. Yeah, that one awful Super Bowl, right?
yeah, um, and they made it to a Super Bowl before that.
Yes.
So they've had like some success, but yeah, the Jacksonville market just never really took off, and it did get off to a good start. So it's a
Yeah.
shame.
Last thing I want to take away from the Super Bowl and kind of segueing into what we're going to be talking about for the next, several weeks is, so now we've seen what we want to be. We want to be Super Bowl champions, and we've seen two teams that have been built really well, that are, well coached, blah, blah, blah. Did anything stand out for you watching these two teams that are like, that's something the Giants, you know, needs to be priority one or two to make this team into a legitimate contending team? Because, you know, we're obviously in the midst of a never ending rebuild. We have a lot of holes we need to fill to be at this level. But coming away from that game, you were kind of like, that's what we need to do to, get on the path.
Well, I'll say yes, but it's probably not what you'd think because
Hmm.
I've been a fix the offense first guy for a while now. I'm not changing my opinion on that. Um, but from this game, what I saw that the Giants just don't have. Sorry.
That's
What the Giants don't have that I saw in this game was a pass rush. I mean, just the ability to get to a quarterback. You don't have to hit him every time. You just have to make him uncomfortable every time using only four guys. Is it is such an advantage because it allows you to just play a variety of different coverages on the back. It allows you to disguise way more. You just have more guys on the back end. You don't have to worry about committing so much forward.
Yeah, that's exactly funny you said it. I didn't think I was gonna say that. That's exactly what I was gonna say. It's not even the ability to create a pass rush, it's just go get him. They played an entire game, didn't blitz one time. They didn't have to create a pass rush. They just had four guys who just fucking went at it and got him. And it seems like we're just so far away from that where, we just have, four really good defensive linemen who can just go and get the quarterback, just beat your man consistently. And we don't do that. And that's the biggest thing. And yesterday was kind of a unique case. I mean, playing a whole game without blitzing one time and being that successful getting to the quarterback, but just we're concerned about the back end of the defense. We're concerned about the secondary, and life is made a lot easier when you make a quarterback, uncomfortable. And until we can start doing that, we're going to be, we're never going to catch up to these teams. So I think that's priority one. Is just start as close to the ball as possible. Build this defensive line, make this defensive line something that takes a lot of pressure off deficiencies that we have now. Hopefully, we'll get better over the next couple of years as we keep filling in this roster.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd say priority one. Um, yeah, I still think that like getting an offensive identity is the most important thing, but I do think that it's going to be the thing that separates a good team from a successful team is a defense that can just do that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you can have a great roster. I also think you worry about the defense first, and you wind up with like the Jets. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like whether it be Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez, and just these great defenses and an offense that's pretty much just running the ball, or it being Robert Sala and these great defenses and you know old Ben playing quarterback. Um, you do have to worry about your offense. It's an offensive league right now. You
Hmm.
got to score points, but I do think that the difference between the very good teams and the ones that win are ones that have that kind of defense right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's not football is not a game where coaches are playing chess against each other and you just who out schemes the other. It's you got to beat your man. It's players play, and we saw that was the greatest example yesterday of players playing. That was one team that was clearly better than the other on that day, and it was where they beat them the most was closest to the ball being snapped.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
Hmm.
And that kind of segues us because going into the upcoming weeks, we're going to start looking at the Giants roster, what the deficiencies are, what those solutions might look like in the draft, in free agency, those sorts of things. So be sure to follow the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And yeah, we will see you guys next Tuesday morning.
Yeah, goodbye 2024 season. It's over. I don't want to think about it anymore. Now it's time
The
to
Giants are 0-0.
yeah, let's think about happier times and how we can fix this mess. And I don't want to talk about last season ever again.
Yeah, yeah.
Ever again.
We're on to the 101st. All right, everyone. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, go
Go
Giants.
Giants.